Aaron Taylor is a college football Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, and one of the most respected voices in the game. A two-time All-American at Notre Dame and Lombardi Award winner, he went on to play in the NFL before injuries ended his career early. But Aaron's most powerful work began off the field, becoming an advocate for mental health and redefining what strength looks like beyond the helmet and pads.
Thank you so much, Aaron Taylor, for joining me here on AwareNow to share this space and to share your story. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. We are kindred spirits of sorts in terms of wanting to give back and be a part of this incredible journey that we have. I've got a lot of making up to do for my 20s and 30s, so I'm just trying to balance the ledger a little bit. But honestly, I get so much personal pleasure and serenity and just have so much gratitude myself for this incredible set of circumstances that I've been given, that anytime I get a chance to hop on and vibe about that with the hopes of inspiring others or learning about other things that I can do to help other people do what they're doing, I'm all about it. So the pleasure's mine, Allié, and I'm looking forward to our time.
I am as well. Let's get started this way by me just admitting the truth of it all is the fact of the matter is I've never won a Super Bowl. Most people haven't. You, my friend, have. If we can start this way, just take me back to that moment, if you would. I guess, what did it actually feel like to reach the peak of what so many people dream about?
That's a great question. And the simple answer is it felt weird. It was surreal. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. I started playing sports when I was 6, 7 years old, like officially. I mean, always in the backyard from the time I was probably 2. But I had never won a championship at that level. I had won high school championships and those sort of things. We had finished as high as number 2 in college. But every kid that starts out playing football has a dream, has posters on their wall that depict players or moments. And when you're laying in bed, you're dreaming about making the great block or catch or tackle or throw that wins the big game. Well, for us and me at 28, it was that game. And we happened to be on offense. It was 1996 after that season, so technically 97 sometime in January. We were playing the New England Patriots. We had a 2-touchdown lead, and we were in what we call our 4-minute offense, which means we're on the field, we're trying to run the ball so that the clock can run out and eat up the last 4 minutes of time. And I remember the quarterback, Brett Favre, takes the ball, snaps it, drops his knee down, and there's less than 30 seconds left on the clock, and we know for certain that we won the game at that point. And all of a sudden, the confetti starts coming down. And it's like this surreal slow motion moment of everything you've ever worked for. Every off-season workout, winter conditioning, summer training, 4 or 5 knee surgeries for me at that point, all of the adversity coming together to reach that mountaintop. It's the moment that for us as athletes, it's like we've ascended and are standing on the top of Mount Everest. And it was surreal. It was like, that's it? We did it? There's no more next week. There's no more, all right, we're one step closer, because that's what it had always been. And there's a great shot of NFL films with me kind of pirouetting through the confetti because it turned me instantly back into a little kid. And the irony is that for much of my professional career, I didn't enjoy playing football. It was work, it was pain, it was stress. I had unfortunately gotten away from the joy of the sport, the intrinsic joy that I imagined as a kid. But for that one brief moment, those 30 to 45 seconds, all of that fell away and I became this, I'm feeling the emotion right now, like this 8-year-old little boy that was getting a chance to experience everything that he had put into what had become a manifestation of his childhood dream.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. I was feeling all those feels as you were sharing. every detail. So I imagine then after that there must have been some sort of a strange silence that would follow a moment like that when the noise dies down, when the cameras stop flashing. Because we know, they say that when you're on top, there's only one way to go. So I guess pause here to say, when you think back to the time after the win, Aaron, what was a moment when things changed, when they started to slide? Because we can't stay in this euphoric moment forever. Things come down.
Well, it's interesting. The greatest silence I felt after the Super Bowl was that of my girlfriend as I was receiving the phone number of another woman right in front of her because I was so intoxicated. And I can say that with a smile and some joy on my face now, only because I was a glorious, beautiful train wreck. And that wasn't a phone moment for her, and it wasn't one of my proudest moments, but it really represented how far away from myself I had become. And the NFL doesn't require that you do that, but it certainly invites it. And I wasn't disciplined or strong enough to resist those temptations. Now, thankfully, I didn't cross even more lines and take that further than where it should have or needed or could have gone. But that was emblematic of what would eventually be the fall from grace when I shut it down completely. And it's really interesting. When you retire from the NFL and you're able to participate in anything where you're an elite part of an elite unit. There's not many people that do what you do. You've got this skill set that not many people on the planet have. You really enjoy it. You get compensated like crazy for it. When all that goes poof in an instant, you're in this vacuum that you've never been in, and you feel insecure for the first time in your life and not knowing what's coming next. The football world is a very cadenced world. Nothing we ever do is any further than 3 months, let alone 6 months out. So to not have any idea what I was going to do now that I was all grown up was pretty harrowing at 28. So I did what most respectable, successful people do and started drinking a bunch of wild turkey 5-6 nights a week and trying to fill the void. I was hugely depressed. I had no sense of purpose. I had no identity. My income stream was stopped. I had no community that I was a part of anymore in the locker room. And I didn't feel that I had a purpose to be or a reason why to get out of bed. So I floundered and I tried to recreate it in a lot of different ways. But I think when we go from point A to point B in our lives, and I guess the simplest way I've said it is, transition requires transformation. It requires us to become something different than we previously were. And that ain't always fun. And it's not always easy. But when I finally hit rock bottom for me, which was, failed relationship number 277, it was an opportunity to go in, to rip my chest open, to really get at the heart of what it was that was driving my not so good decision making, and would allow me to start slowly getting back to the path that I'm now on, or at least closer to anyway. And it was the last thing I would have asked for, but it was the first thing that worked to get me back to myself.
Wow, what a journey. And to your point, so instantly to be this, and then the very next instant, not at all, to reconcile that, your identity, your, as you say, your purpose or lack thereof at that moment, finding that when it was provided previously. So you've had a career that most people would define as the pinnacle of success, but sometimes, as you know, the moments that define us do not look successful at all. They look messy and all over the place. They're quieter, way more complicated. Could you talk for a moment, Aaron, about one of those moments, one of those invisible lows that you rose from?
Man, so many. I think the easiest one that comes to mind was the moment that I decided to give up drugs and alcohol. And looking back, I didn't drink or use because of the way it made me feel. That's what I thought. I drank and used because of the way it prevented me from feeling. And I came from a long line of alcoholics on my father's side, and addiction is in my family. We like what we like. There's no medium or gray in our area. It's all or nothing. And famously within the recovery world, we talk about one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And that certainly was the case with me, not just with drugs and alcohol, but with food and bread and sugar and, Netflix and anything. I like what I like. So I mentioned a failed relationship, and in that process, oftentimes you try to reconcile, we're going to get back together, what are we going to do? And it was more of a hostage-ship than a relationship emotionally for, I think, probably both of us. And she had cheated on me with her ex-fiance, and I was the rebound guy, and it was a disaster. Neither of us were in really good places. And she said that she thought she had a drinking problem. So I took her to, this meeting at this church and dropped her off. And, all the women came out and hugged her as they took her back in. I'm thinking, yeah, good cover story, right? So about a week later, she calls me and she goes, hey, just want to let you know, thank you for taking me to the meeting. And I'm an alcoholic and I want to, try recovery and stop drinking. And it's what I'm going to do for me. And I'll just be honest, this will probably be the last time that we ever speak. And there's one more thing I want you to know. And I said, yeah, what's that? And she said, you and I drink and use the same. Click. And Allie, I got to tell you that the deafening silence of that phone going blank following those words changed the course and the trajectory of my life forever. I heard her, and that was the message of everything that had gone into my life up to that moment. All of the doubts, all of the questions, all of the masking, all of the facade and the charade of the pretending, the desperately hoping not to get found out, the imposter syndrome, all of the management of my image just fell away in that moment. And I heard it. And it stuck with me and it rang. So I went to the gym the next day and I sat on a treadmill and talked to one of our mutual friends. I mentioned this really profound conversation and she said something to me that resonated. And the woman says, my husband used to go to a recovery meeting up on the top of the hill in our neighborhood. If you're interested, I can give you his number if you ever want to go. And for whatever reason, I'm like going to talk to strangers. I want a Super Bowl. I'm on TV at that moment. Like I'm an NFL guy. I'm not going to walk in. Alcoholics or people that live under park benches and drink out of brown paper sacks. I ain't going to nothing like that. But for whatever reason, I said, okay. And that was it. She gave me his number. That was on a Monday. I called him. Tuesday, I walked in to a man's garage that was heaven. And it was the place where I would learn how to be human again. It was the place that I would drop the facade of AT and learn how to be Aaron again, and learn how to become a good teammate again to myself, to my community, to my friends, to my employers, and to let go of the lie and to get honest and to become willing and to make amends and to do all the things we need to do to clean up the wreckage from our lives. So yeah, there are some moments in our lives and some phone calls that matter more than others. And looking back, that was one of those quiet moments that if you're watching a movie of my life, you may not notice anything distinct, but everything that came after that phone call changed everything. And I'm so grateful of all the pain and everything I had to go through to earn the opportunity to walk into that garage and see those guys that all laughed at me, but laughed with me when I said, yeah, my name's Aaron and I don't think I have a drinking problem, but I'm here to explore it. And they said, yeah, man, us neither, sit down. And it was that kind of sit down, Rook. We got it. We're the vets in this room. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Shut your mouth, use your ears, and keep coming back. And I did that. And I owe everything I've got in my life today, a life that I wouldn't trade anything for. If you could give me a magic wand and I could wave it and I could change any part of my life, my job, my house, where I live, my kids, me, my looks, anything. I wouldn't change a single thing because I'm grateful for what I've got. It all is a gift. It's all a blessing. And my wife and kids might not always say that that's my opinion, and that might not always be true, but in my heart of hearts, that's the way I feel. And that moment was a turning point for me that I'll never forget.
I think it's really beautiful to say that such a degree of grace can be found in a garage. So, Aaron, you and I have come from different worlds. All of us come from our different worlds and spaces and places. Yet, they were the same in regard to strength, being all about grit, about wins, about pushing through at all cost. Perhaps you are like I am. The older I get, the more I've realized that kind of strength cannot carry you forever. So question now for you, Aaron, is what does strength look like for you now? Not the NFL version, but the kind that gets you through a regular Friday like today. What is strength to you now?
Man, there was, give me a second here. I'm going to find this quote that somebody sent me because it's so dang good and will encapsulate what I'm going to say. But surrender to win. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. A belief in book and data that I can do hard things. Like, that's really important to know that I'm capable of doing things that are hard, and that I'm capable of doing more than I think I can do. And the problem is not that there are problems. The problem is expecting otherwise and thinking that having problems is a problem. Theodore Rubin. The Buddhists like to say that, what is it? That pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And the suffering that I experience in my life is when I'm unwilling to accept things the way that they are, when I want them to be different, when I want my wife to act a certain way, when I expect my kids to do everything I say to the T, when the reds or the blues or the purples or them or they or whatever it is in the world doesn't follow my directions and my preferences, that's when I'm most anxious. That's when I suffer the most. When I'm able to be at my best and let things go and let the world be what it is, I'm good. And being a college football analyst and doing the things I do for CBS Sports, it's a long season and it's a grind, but I'm wired that way. I like hot and intense like a meteor and just boom. But I need a carrot at the end of the stick. And for many years, that was going down to Baja. And I love the area north of Cabo. It's kind of remote. And I was sitting on the beach one day, meditating in the morning. The sun's coming up behind me in the Sierra Lagunas. The sky is this beautiful pink, orange sunrise out in front. There's literally whales you can walk across with spouts coming out. It was this idyllic, serene setting. And out of nowhere, I'm like looking down the beach. You can't see in any direction. Like, there's no people. Except for this one guy comes out and walks on the beach with like 10 dogs. Now, it turns out this guy rescues these dogs, and dogs have a rough existence down in Baja. They don't spay or neuter, and he just takes them all in. But man, these suckers were unruly, and they're barking. So here I am, all zen, coming out of my meditation. Dude's messing my serenity up. So I start watching this cat and these dogs and thinking all these different thoughts, and all of a sudden, like, I'm tight and I'm pissed. This dude's screwing up my relaxation. And about 2 to 3 minutes of this, I catch myself in what I'm doing. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I do, isn't it? Like, I'm sitting here in the middle of literal serenity, surrounded by it. And there's this one tiny speck of negativity. And instead of looking at the big picture, I'm zoomed in on this dude who's out for a morning walk with these dogs that he's rescuing. Like the ridiculousness of it, like hit me between the eyes, Allie. But that lesson that I got there was one I'll never forget, because what I learned in that moment was I don't see the world the way that it is. I see it the way that I am. Like both things were absolutely true simultaneously. Serenity, sunrise, whales, meditation, and a dude rescuing dogs. So the world I was choosing to live in for those 2 to 3 minutes was the one in negativity, where I focused on what I didn't want, what was interrupting what it was I thought I wanted, what I was experiencing. I wasn't present in that moment. So every time I get too full of myself and am focusing on politics and what's going on around the world and my neighbors and the thises and the that's, I try to remember that story and say, man, how can I shift my focus and attention on what else is true in this moment? When my wife is expecting me to do something but doesn't verbalize it, God bless her soul, and I've got 50, God bless her soul, because she is patient. Oh my, she said, yes, I'm sorry, baby, you had a chance. But when I want it to be different, I'm learning to stop myself and say, what else is true about her in this moment? And then I remember all the things that I love about her, and those little pet peeves that drive me crazy in a 16-year marriage just don't carry the weight that they once did. But it's a trap, man. It's seductive. But we don't see the world the way that it is. We see it the way that we are. So it's really critical that we're intentional on where we place our focus and attention, and then therefore where we place our time and our effort. Because when we focus on where we place our focus, attention, and time and effort, we have a tendency to be able to change our fate.
I love that. And I love how you just said, what else is true about this moment? What else is true about my wife? What else is true about here in the serenity on the beach? Lots of other things were true, not just the dogs. That is powerful. I feel like we're already talking about some deep stuff, but I want to talk about, let's get deeper.
We can lighten it up. Where do you want to go?
No, I want to go deeper.
Love Island?
What are we
talking about?
I want to go deeper and darker. I want to do this. I want to say, let's talk about stuff like anger.
Okay.
Because I think, now this is me as a woman saying this, but just society in general, I feel like a lot of men, anger becomes a societal acceptable mask for everything. Sadness, fear, vulnerability. Has that ever been true for you?
Has it ever not been true for me?
Ooh.
I think what is the true part about that is the awakening of that dynamic, that for me when I fear, for me when I'm scared, for me when I have uncertainty, for me when I'm sad, I don't like those feelings. I feel vulnerable. I've been hurt in my life when I feel vulnerable. So you know when I don't feel vulnerable? When I'm big, mad, angry, big guy. And I think a lot of men either watch or learn or just figure it out that that's a safety valve. It's a mechanism. And I, like many people, absolutely default to anger. The first thing I'll feel is fear or sadness. The first thing I show is anger. Because anger, I feel strong and powerful, and I have the axe that I'm ready to swing. Fear, I feel vulnerable and weak. And who wants to feel that way?
Yeah.
So it's a process, especially with the way that we know our brains work. When we're in fear state and that cortisol or adrenaline or that fight or flight kicks, those chemicals take 15 to 20 minutes to process. And if we reinforce those by more negative thoughts, then we can turn a mountain into a molehill with the quickness. And that's what we do when somebody cuts us off in traffic. This is what I do. And man, wouldn't it be, what if I, this dude cut me off in traffic, we end up at the light. What if I just got out the car and I said this, and then he did that, and then da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then like in my head, I'm 6 miles down the road having this whole conversation about this interaction that's not gonna happen because it's easier for me to feel that than that dude disrespected me when he cut me off.
Yeah.
And there was a time in my life when I felt disrespected when I was sexually abused and physically violated. There was a time in my life when I felt disrespected when I was physically abused or abandoned. And I didn't like the way that that felt. So this guy cut me off. He's not putting his hand in my pants, but he's reminding me of the way that I felt when somebody did. And my brain, these big old association machines, never forgot that. Because it never forgot that, it wants to keep me safe. And that's the notion of what being triggered is. So these little things that trigger us are threats. Like, we just want to be safe. We don't want the saber-toothed tiger to jump out the bushes and come after us. So we hear bushes rustling, we take off.
Yeah.
So it's important to have a plan so that we can respond to our stimuli versus react to them, because I'm as guilty as anybody of using anger to mask my true emotions. And I'll take you one better, Allie. What I like to do, because I'm the lovable big guy, I don't want to look like a dick. So I'm passive aggressive or sarcastic. I'll fillet you and cut your guts out trying to be funny, and hopefully you don't notice, but there's some anger in there. So sarcasm for me is a warning sign, and that's been the default of my style of humor. And I'm really working to correct that and find more creative, difficult ways to be funny. Because for me, there's anger underneath that sarcasm. And it's a tool, just like a double-edged sword, that I've used to cut a lot more than I've used to bless.
Wow. And I love that, just becoming so self-aware, like for you recognizing, for me, sarcasm is this, for me, this is it. And so to create from that set of knowings, then we can take the appropriate action. I love how you also talked about the fact that we can respond to something, not react to it, because a reaction and response are two very different things. One is like a knee-jerk sort of thing, and the other has intention behind it. So I know, I've heard it through the grapevine, that you've got a name for that voice inside your head by the name of Ernie. Mine, I will share, is the editor, and a real piece of work. So a question for you now, switching gears a bit, is what do you do when Ernie is loud and relentless? What brings you back to center, Aaron?
First of all, I want to give a shout out to Ernie. Ernie's got a bad rap. Now, granted, he's always trying to fuck it up. He's always trying to ruin a good thing. He never appreciates how good he's got it. He also doesn't have a lot of confidence. So he's always trying to make up and stand out and call attention to himself, just so that you'll tell him that he's a good boy, or that he matters, or that he's around. So he means well. But man, oh man, it's best if he stays in his room. So I try to keep Ernie in his cage as much as I can, because he likes to muck things up a little bit. I'll say this, like, Ernie's my alter ego. It's my shadow piece, right? It's the part of me that I try to hide, repress, and deny, but it's back there hitting the levers. But what I've realized over the years is that he's also persistent. And he's also energetic, and he also is outgoing. So there's some positive qualities to my ego and to my shadow. What I try to do when I'm at my best is draw upon Ernie and that part of me that I work diligently to try to stuff down, because whatever we repress continues to evolve and pop up, right? There's another more witty way to say that I can't think of at the moment. Maybe it'll hit me, but whatever we resist persists. I think it was Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God is where I first read or heard that. Whatever we resist persists. So when we hide, repress, or deny those parts of us that are our shadows, so to speak, they end up finding their ways out. So I'm trying now to lean into that part and just keep him out in front of me so he can work for me instead of against me. And it may sound crazy to people listening. I'm talking about this thing. I don't hear voices or, talk to Ernie or anything like that. It's just a metaphor to talk about those different places of us and the mask that we wear just to stay safe and navigate, but to lean into it. Then, it's the best way to say it. Like, we all talk about this hole in ourselves, right? We're always trying to fill this hole, this HOLE, where really it's about becoming whole, WHOLE. And honestly, we look so much outside of ourselves to fill that hole so that we can become whole. What I'm starting to suspect in my current trajectory is starting to look inward. And what I'm wondering, and what I'm starting to find, is that what's been missing is me. But it's all of me. And that includes Ernie. This part of me that developed and evolved as a safety mechanism, as a way to navigate a childhood that was challenging, just like a lot of other people's. But as equally as part of me is, the benign, benevolent part of, the one that they write articles about. Right. Like Ernie and Aaron are the same cat. And I think part of this journey for all of us is learning how to integrate those pieces and to be okay with everything that we are and everything that we're not. And to know that our wholeness is a part and parcel of us being integral, that's integrity. Our thoughts, our words, our actions is about being completely aligned, even with the pieces of us that we don't always want our friends, neighbors, or loved ones to know. So I know that's a long ass answer to your question, but that's what floated up and seems to make sense for whatever the heck you asked me 5 minutes ago.
But I like, there's a specific word there, integral, because when we think of integrity, right, just bust out that part of it, integral. Like, we do need to integrate the verb of it, not just the noun. We have to integrate these different parts and pieces of us for the whole version and the whole package, So
what's the flip side? I'm curious. Now I'm gonna flip this. Now we're doing this podcast together. The flip side of your editor, is that discernment? Is that an ability to be able to parse through information and pull out what's helpful? Like, what's the flip side of the negative piece of your editor?
Yeah, I guess the editor is always wanting to make sure that everything is done to a particular degree of excellence, and that the editor will not have it any other way. And so I need to remind the editor that I am a human. Allie is human, and that's okay with me. I guess got to convince her that that's okay too. So yeah, she can be a bitch, but for the most times we get on. But to your point, to recognizing, because I need her to do the work that we do, but at the same time I gotta remind her it's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah.
Because there is no such thing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Well, yeah, Ernie and the editor, I tell you what, we need them, we love them, but yeah.
They're gonna hook up for drinks after this, probably.
You know what?
Why not?
Of course they would, So let's talk about, so I love how you're talking about the fact that just like looking more inward and like, as opposed to outside of everything that's going on around us that we can't control, what can we control? And that resides here. But I want to go back to out there these days, Aaron, you're showing up in very powerful ways, not just for yourself, but for so many others. There's a couple of examples through Radical Hope. You're helping young people find connection and support around mental health. And with the Joe Moore Award, you're honoring the kind of grit, the kind of unity that doesn't always get the accolades or make the headlines. So I guess my next question for you is, what connects these two parts of your work? I mean, what do they say about the legacy that you're building off of the field?
I think at my core, like if there's something unquestionable about me, it's my resilience. And I don't know what I did to earn that or have it or just temporarily be able to hold it. But it's there, and it's always been there. I've had different people throughout my life that have been there for me to remind me of that, to nurture that, to feed it when it was hungry. And I've lost 13 to completed suicide. I've lost a couple dozen more to deaths of despair, both from my football circles and from recovery. And I don't know why they didn't have it. So I'm grateful that I do. And my life hasn't been easy. It's not for any of us, I don't think. And there's part of me that suspects that that's the point why we're here, is to, be born perfect. And then to have things on the outside that remind us that maybe we're not, or to invite us to question that. And then we spend our whole lives trying to work out just to get back to we were perfect all along, just the way that we were. And we accept that or we don't. And I don't know, there's divinity in that for me. So this hope piece, like hope is a verb. It requires action. And I found some ways for myself, and just by telling my own story and, leading through vulnerability, that's a superpower of mine. Just, play the emotional game of, I'll show you mine. If you show me yours, I'll go first, but in healthy, loving ways. So the Joe Moore Award, and Radical Hope, and this podcast, and all the other things I do, I want to be a good teammate. And be a meaningful part of something worthwhile. Everything I've done does that in some way. My family, sports, my time with you right here, right now. And when I can do that, all the other bullshit just falls away. And as hard and raw as this part of me is, it's the best part of me. It's the most authentic part of me. But it's hard to get on CBS and talk college football like this. So I'm grateful that I can go on CBS and talk college football like that, so that I've got the time and the notoriety and the visibility to talk about things that matter more than 3rd and 7. That can be really important. So hope, resilience, being a good teammate. I've had mentors in my life that changed my life forever. Joe Moore, my offensive line coach, taught me that I always had 5 more in me, that no matter how hard things got, I was always capable of doing 5 more reps at anything. Bill Z, my longtime mentor, taught me a roadmap and a process to be happy and serene, and to forgive myself and other people, to how to be grateful, to be humble, but in the most glorious, grandiose sense. My head coach, Bill Laddiser, in high school, taught me to believe in myself and what my potential was. My mom, my first day of padded practice at De La Salle, we had moved. I was a DNF student. I got kicked out of the house. I wasn't on my way to be a college football Hall of Famer and Super Bowl champ, I assure you of that, let alone a freaking high school graduate. And that first practice, I got my ass chewed out. And if I was going the wrong way, I didn't know what I was doing. I had never really played organized football. And I came home from that practice in tears. I was like, I'm sorry, Mom, I know we moved here, but I can't do it. I can't go back. I can't do another day of that. And leading up to that, she'd asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I'm like, I don't know, play pro football. And I said that, but I don't think I even really believed it. But she said that day, it's like, you got to figure out if what it is you want is worth the price that you might have to pay for it. If that answer is yes, you got to find a way to get up and go to practice. If that answer is no, that's okay. But you got to be honest with yourself. And she shut the door. And man, I wish you could have seen me sitting on the edge of that bed, Allie. Because I didn't know what I was going to do. How I could go back. But I did. I got my ass chewed again. But I made a block or two. And then I went back the next day and I made another couple blocks. And I went back and I kept making more blocks. As it turned out, I was pretty damn good at football. I just didn't know it yet. I think about that moment and how scared I was. Not knowing what I was going to do, how I could do it. And how close I was to giving up everything that's come after that moment. Having no idea, none about what was possible, about what I was possible. What I would do and the people I would touch and the things that I would get to experience and the money that I would make. The lives I would touch and the people that would touch my own, I had zero idea of what was coming. But I had hope. And I want other people to have that too. I want the world to know that there are things that each of us can do in as little as 5 minutes that can help us feel and play better in the moments of our lives that matter the most. And they don't cost anything. They just require willingness and honesty. And a little bit of elbow grease. And my observation is that when I've done that, and when other peoples have done that too, that somehow, some way, things get better. And I ask you, Allie, how's it get better than that?
That's a big word. It's one of my favorite 4 letters, hope. Because sometimes you feel like you have nothing, but at the end of the day, you can always have hope. No one can take that.
Yeah.
So
I'll say this about hope. Optimism is a belief that somehow things will get better, right?
Yeah.
Hope is a belief that there are things that we can do to make things better. And there's a big difference between those two. Because optimism is about a desire. It's about things happening outside of our control. Where hope's a verb. It's about action.
Yeah.
Hope is a belief that there are things that we can do to make our lives better. And that puts the ball back in our court. And that's true for everybody.
Yeah. 100%. As long as we're alive, there's still a chance, there's still a hope. And, you know, I want to shift one more time, and there's a specific word I want to focus on, and it is...
Man, we can't... You want to go darker than this?
No.
Damn, Allie. Damn.
Let's go back
went and
up.
touch the dragon. Can we let the dragon sleep a little bit? Good Lord.
Dragon, you may rest. Thank you so much.
He's taking a nap.
Let's to the other side of it all, right? The fact that recently you were featured in a very powerful episode of Remade with Kobe Stevens, Villalici. I want to talk about like what that moment was like specifically. I'm curious to know the word remade. What does remade mean to you?
Interesting. That was a cool moment. Just that whole day and how I got connected with Bill McCullough, who's the producer there, and he knows a good buddy, Lonnie Paxton, and Lonnie's got his fingers in all sort of stuff. And Lonnie and I played in the NFL, but not together, but know a bunch of the same people and work out together. And it was this beautiful confluence of all these circles of my lives that now involve recovery, being remade, and transformation. And I think what the remade piece, what immediately floated up was the power of the shared experience is transformational. So that moment for me was being able to share completely unique and different, in air quote, set of circumstances, but a shared experience. No different than me and you and your editor and my Ernie, right?
Mhm.
Your lived experience as a child and whatever it is that created you and mine being my own. We seemingly have these different paths in lives, and you're female, I'm male, you're small, I'm big, skin color, race, gender, genetics, all of it.
Mhm.
But is it really different?
Yeah.
Right? So remade to me is like that. That's not omakase, that's sushi. What the hell am I thinking about? When you break the vase and they put it back together with the
Ah,
gold lines.
yeah. That thing.
Somebody out there put it in the comments. But that notion that when you break these beautiful porcelain vases, they're damaged. But this art form in the East, and I believe it's Japan, of welding these vases back together with gold creates this new thing that has its own new unique beauty that isn't what it was before,
Yeah.
but is this new thing that is almost identical to what it was before, equally as beautiful, just in a slightly different way.
Mhm.
To me, that's what being remade is all about. It's
Yeah.
the Humpty Dumpty of humanity, where we fall off the wall, we shatter into these pieces. And if we're lucky, we have people around us, along with ourselves, that can somehow find the gold in our lives to piece it all back together and keep it moving.
Yeah. I love that. I love it so much. So just a couple more questions. It'll be on the light side. If every single thing that you ever did on the field disappeared, and the only thing left was how you showed up as a father, a friend, a man, Aaron, what do you want people to remember about you?
It's a really good question, and honestly, I try to live my life in that way. And the way I've phrased it is, when I die, if the thing I'm best known for is how I played football, then I've been a colossal failure. Football is a vehicle, and Bill Z, one of my mentors that I mentioned earlier, he really helped me to understand that football is a part of who I am, and it's the launch pad, that it's a piece of the puzzle, but not the greatest piece, that in my 50s, things would all start to come together just like it did for him. And that's when I would be able to affect the most change. So here at 52, I'm finding that to be true. My wife and kids and friends would probably say, at times he was difficult to love, but it was always worth it in the end. But I think when I get to the pearly gates, if God doesn't ask me about spring break in '92, he'd probably say that I was a pretty good teammate, that I was somebody that you wanted to have on your team. There may be somebody who's more talented or more this and that, but at the end of the day, Aaron Taylor helped you win and get more of what you wanted, and that they enjoyed their time. We had a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. We cried a lot. We grew. And I try to do that in every way I can. Sometimes it's at the same time like it is today. Most of the time it's Frankenstein. I got 4 months where I get to laugh and have fun and get paid to be on scholarship and talk about sports on television, and my opinions don't even have to be right. I mean, it's stealing. The other 8 months out of the year, that funds my philanthropic habit, where I get to be purposeful and feel significant and be a part of a community and something greater than myself. So however we do it, having an income and identity and purpose and significance and community are what I call the 5 pillars of fulfillment. And it's critical that we have those. There certainly are others, but those 5, when in place, are always the great foundation for an amazing life. And I try to do that, and none of those things have anything to do with football, but all 5 of them were there when I was playing. A little bit more muted than I think I would have them be if I got a chance to go back and do it all over again. But good thing I've been an ex-athlete a hell of a lot longer than I played, because I'm getting the opportunity to try to flip the script there.
That is awesome. Before we wrap up today, one more thing. Aaron. Not everyone who feels lost looks lost. Sometimes you're surrounded by love, by success, and you still feel like you're not home in your own skin. So my last question for you today would be, for someone who is sitting in that space right now, what would you say to them, Aaron? And again, not as a former pro athlete, but as someone who has been there and made it through it. What would you say?
I love the way that this question is framed, that not all people that are lost look lost. And my response to that would be that feelings aren't facts, that the way we feel about our set of circumstances or lives or people around us isn't necessarily the way that they actually are. And that's really important for me to remember when the life that I have is sending 8-man blitzes and I only got 5 people to pick them up. Feelings aren't facts. Our thoughts are things. These electrical signals go through these complex neural pathways in our brain. And based on the type of thought we have, our brain releases chemicals. So if we have good, healthy thoughts that are positive, our brain releases positive chemicals and we feel good. If we have negative thoughts or fearful thoughts or uncertain thoughts, our brain releases chemicals accordingly. And then we start to feel afraid. Our bodies translate these chemicals, and very shortly after that takes place, that's what we experience as emotion. So just because I think the guy that's cutting me off in the car is disrespecting me doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case. So the question becomes, when we feel lost, how do we lash ourselves to the mast when the seas are rocky? And for me, there's a myriad ways to do it, but prayer, meditation, service is a simple piece. When I'm at my worst, I'm all out in the world, focused on what everybody else is doing, but only on how it relates to me. I'm self-centered. So when I'm in trouble and I feel lost and unloved, even though I'm surrounded by love, one of the ways that I've learned to flip the script are simple acts of service. Because for me, serenity is the gateway, or courtesy is the gateway to serenity. That when I let a person merge or take the parking spot or hold the door open for the woman that's got the bags or the man that's way too far away, but I sit there and I say, don't rush, and they come in, or I compliment a guy's tie or pocket square or whatever. That to me gets me outside of myself, and it begins a process that whenever it is I start to feel better and I look back, invariably, and I don't know when I'll feel better, but when I do, I'll look back and it will have started in that moment that I made the decision to take action to be of service. And I think, Allie, what happens there for me and many others is that we're reminded that we have value. That regardless of how we feel about ourselves or what other messages the world has given us, that in those moments, we're reminded that we have something to offer. And I think deep down inside for all of us, we're just on this big ass rock in the middle of nowhere, trying to validate the fact that our lives have meaning, that we matter, that we make a difference. So if you're out there feeling lost and you're looking for a way to get yourself back on track, if you're starting to lose hope but want to be reminded that there are good things and good people out there, maybe turn the focus away from yourself, get back into the world, and think about what you can bring to situations versus what situations are bringing to you through kindness, through acceptance, through courtesy, and see if that starts to shift just slightly your perspective so that your focus and attention is on how you do matter, how you do make a difference, how people are appreciative, are grateful for who you are, the way that you are, so that you can have that integrity and become that integral person that you've always been, that for whatever reason, The way that this deal is designed, we often forget. But courtesy is the gateway to serenity. So if you're struggling, look outside yourself and see who it is that you can help to be reminded of who the hell you've always been.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a powerful statement. I do believe that it is when we help other people, we help ourselves at the same time. Just that gift of gratitude. Thank you, Aaron, for sharing this space, for sharing this story. Thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now.
I appreciate you. It got messy in the middle, as it does in life, but I feel lighter now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm coming out of Big Ten media days recently and getting ready for the season. I get all anxious and nervous, and am I ready? And that self-doubt imposter, are they going to finally know that I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm not any good? And it's a small voice now compared to what it was, but I carry that.
Mm-hmm.
I did a podcast earlier myself for football. I got one that's coming up right after this. So I got all these different parts of me. But when I can go there and open my heart, a better version of me shows up. And what I'm reminded of is that I already am in possession of everything I need to knock my interview, where I'm the host, out of the park, because I got to go there. So usually getting emotional and touching those sensitive places is the last thing that I try, but it's often the first thing that works to liberating me from myself. So, Allie, to you, I say thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to do what I wouldn't have done by myself. I didn't want to go there, but I feel much better, and I'm going to knock out what it is I want to do. And more than that, I've just enjoyed this conversation and would hope more people have these. So if you're out there and love conversations like this, keep watching Allie's show. And I'd encourage you to talk to your boys or to your friends. And when you ask your mates how they're doing, ask them how they're really doing. And maybe play the emotional game of I'll show you mine if you show me yours, and risk telling them something that you maybe wouldn't otherwise do. And you'll be amazed at the permission that creates. And I see this with Radical Hope when we're on campus with student athletes. People are starved for connection. These phones, these social media, these devices have driven us apart. They haven't made us closer. So baked into our cake, our DNA, is this necessity to be connected. And we don't have that connection. So take risks with the people that you love. And not only will you be doing them a favor, you'll be doing yourself a favor. I assure you of that. And the world needs more of that. So I'm going to do that. My boys are like, man, stop being so touchy-feely. But I love you, dog. And we end up having richer conversations, and there's room for both. So that's my stump speech and my PSA for deepening our relationships, because at the end of the day, that's the most valuable thing that we can have. And those end up being the life preservers when you go overboard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We help each other through this whole thing, yeah?
Amen.
So,
we're all out here winging it, Allie. Shit, we need help. I need directions. GPS is all off. I need you to point me in the right direction.
But the only way we can do it is together. That's of our design, right? So, I appreciate you so much, Aaron. This has been so. It's a good thing I wore waterproof mascara, because I was not expecting.
Me too. I was going to wear my normal stuff, but I wore the waterproof stuff. So thank God.
Thank God.